Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. This week we have 4 new commanders, 2 of which are from Dominaria, and some old friends. The denier of handshakes, but not really, Jameson is playing Jason's Grunn deck and keeps a hand with 2 forests, Soul Ring, Life's Legacy, Elvish Archdruid, Whisper Silk Cloak, and Oracle of Moldiah. Jason in turn is playing his own Yargle deck and keeps a hand with 2 swamps, Grim Return, Molting Snakeskin, Masterwork of Ingenuity, Darksteel Ingot, and Imp's Mischief. Eric and Chris are playing 2 decks that have been built out of Eric's collection. What he does is he now brings all of his rares and lands in binders and is able to essentially assemble a deck at any given moment. So what you're about to see are 2 decks that were made very quickly in 15 minutes. Chris is playing Darien and keeps a hand with 3 plains, land tax, Honor of the Pure, Dictate of Heliod, and Return to Dust. Whereas Eric is playing his Kamahl Pitfighter deck and keeps a hand with 3 mountains, Wasteland, Illusionist Bracers, Zealous Conscript, and Chaos Warp. Jason wins the die roll and starts us off. Jason plays a swamp and passes. Eric plays a mountain and also passes. Jameson plays a forest and he casts a Soul Ring. Chris plays a plains and drops land tax before passing. Jason plays a swamp and passes. Eric plays a mountain and casts Illusionist Bracers. Jameson plays a forest and casts Oracle of Moldiah. He then plays another forest and reveals Lifecrafter's Bestiary off the top. Chris grabs some plains from his land tax trigger and he plays one in his main phase. He then casts Honor of the Pure and passes. Jason plays a swamp and casts Darksteel Ingot. Eric plays a mountain and casts Fervor. Jameson draws for turn and reveals a forest off the top. Chris decides to shortcut in the meantime to grab some plains from his land tax trigger and save us all some time. Jameson plays a forest from his hand and then a forest off the top and reveals another forest. He then casts the Bestiary and drops an Elvish Archdruid. He pays 1 to draw and reveals Sylvan Library. Chris plays a plains and casts a risky extraplanar lens, exiling a plains. At the end of his turn, Chris has to discard down to 7 and he passes. Jason has no land for turn and instead casts a Basilisk Collar. He then drops a Sword of Vengeance and passes turn. Eric drops a mountain and passes. Jameson draws and reveals a forest off the top, which he plays. He then casts a Whisper Silk Cloak and then Sylvan Library. Moving to combat, he swings the Oracle at Eric for 3 and the Archdruid at Jason for 2. Chris plays a plains for his turn and brings out Darien. Jason draws and plays a Bojuka Bog, exiling the only graveyard, Chris's, and he passes to Eric. Eric plays a mountain, and Chris shortcuts his land tax trigger to save some time. Eric then passes to Jameson. Jameson uses his library trigger, keeping 1 card and putting 2 back, making sure a forest is on the top. He then casts a Sylvan Safekeeper and pays 1 to draw, revealing Beast Within off the top. Jameson then pays enough to cast Grunn Kicked, and he pays 1 to draw with the Bestiary and reveals Seedborn Muse. Chris plays a plains and taps 2 to cast Return to Dust. He exiles the Whisper Silk Cloak and the Illusionist Bracers. Chris then casts Kytheon, Hero of Akros, and Selfless Spirit before passing turn. Jason draws for turn and casts Yargle before passing. Eric drops a Wasteland and casts Kamahl because everyone else has already played their commanders and he wants to join the party. Jameson uses his library trigger and loses 8 life to keep all the cards. He reveals a Stratascythe off the top, which is going to make for a huge Grunn. Jameson plays a Nykthos while Chris goes to find his basics since he has nothing else to do. Jameson then activates Nykthos and uses some of the mana to cast Seedborn Muse. He pays 1 green to draw the Scythe and reveals a Chord of Calling off the top. Jameson then casts the Scythe and exiles a forest from his library. He then casts Beast Within to kill Kamahl, and Eric responds by tapping Kamahl to kill the Archdruid. Jameson then gears up Grunn, and moving to combat, he swings it at Chris. Grunn becomes a 38/38 after his on-attack trigger, and Chris puts Kytheon in front of the Rampaging Monkey to stop him. Jameson untaps with Chris, and Chris draws for turn and plays a plains. He finds an answer to Jameson's huge board, and pays 10 mana to cast Martial Coup where X is 8. With his own spell in the stack though, Chris sacrifices his Selfless Spirit to give all of his creatures indestructible. The board gets wiped, and Chris gains 8 soldier tokens. Moving to combat, he swings Darien at Jameson for 4 and passes. Jason still has no land for turn, and instead casts a Masterwork of Ingenuity to copy the Stratascythe. He exiles a swamp from his library, and he then casts Mimic Vat before passing turn. Eric plays a mountain and casts an Emrakul's Hatcher. In the meantime, Chris goes to grab some plains while waiting for his turn. Jameson uses his library trigger once more and keeps only 1 card. He then casts a Survival of the Fittest in his main phase, and then casts a Stonehearth Chieftain, paying the 1 to draw with the Bestiary. He then plays Arena as his land for turn, and passes to Chris. Chris plays a Plains, and casts Luminarch's Ascension. He decides not to attack, and passes to Jason. Jason still can't find a swamp to help him get closer to recasting Yargle, so he casts Reanimate and loses 2 to return the Selfless Spirit from Chris's graveyard to his side of the field. He then equips the Sword of Vengeance onto the Spirit, and swings it at Jameson for 4 in the air. At the end of turn, Chris gains a counter on his Ascension. Eric plays a Mountain, and passes. Chris gains another counter on his Ascension, and Jason realizes the error of not attacking Chris. Jameson uses his library trigger once more, before moving to his main phase and recasting a Kick Grunn. Jameson then passes to Chris, who at the end of turn, flashes in Dictate of Heliod, and adds a counter to his Ascension. Chris draws for his turn, and drops a Plains. Moving to combat, he does a full swing at Jameson. However, before moving to blockers, Eric decides to cast Chaos Warp, targeting the Dictate. Chris shuffles it in and reveals an altered Ashnod's Altar off the top. Jameson then blocks Darien and one of the tokens, taking 14. In his second main phase, Chris sacrifices 3 of the soldiers to help recast Darien. Jason doesn't draw a swamp, and gears up his Selfless Spirit with a Stratascythe and the Basilisk Collar. He swings a Spirit at Chris in the air for 7, and gains 7. Chris also gains 7 more tokens from taking damage, and Jason passes to Eric. Eric plays a Valakut, and Chris shortcuts his land tax trigger. Eric then pays 5 to cast a Zealous Conscript, targeting Grunn. He then moves straight to combat, and swings it at Chris. It's a 20/20 with no trample, so Chris decides not to block it, which Eric has been waiting for, and drops Fatal Frenzy. This gives Grunn plus 20/0 and trample, killing Chris in 1 attack step. Eric then passes turn and has to sacrifice Grunn, and Jason loses Chris's Selfless Spirit before Eric passes turn. Jameson plays a Rogue's Passage for his land for turn, and brings out Grunn once more, kicked. He then passes to Jason. Jason draws for turn, and finally finds a land. He plays a Bloodstained Mire, cracking it and taking 1 to go and find a swamp. He then pays 5 to cast Beacon of Unrest to bring back Jameson's Oracle of Moldiah. He reveals a Mox Diamond off the top, and passes to Eric. Eric plays a Mountain, and deals 3 to Jameson from the Valakut trigger. Eric then casts Volcanic Offering, telling Jason to think very carefully on what he picks. Eric picks to blow up Rogue's Passage, and Jason pauses before naming Arena. Eric then chooses to deal 7 to Grunn, and Jason does the same. Eric then taps out, and sacrifices his Eldrazi tokens to recast Kamahl. He passes to Jameson. Jameson uses his library trigger, and only keeps 1 card. He plays a Forest, and equips the Stonehoof Chieftain with the Scythe. Jameson then casts Court of Calling, where X is 6, and goes to find Vigor. Jameson then passes turn, I think is what this means. Jason draws the Mox Diamond for his turn, and reveals a Rogue's Passage, which he plays off the top in his main phase. He reveals a Vampiric Tutor off the top, and recasts Yargle. At the end of Jason's turn, Eric taps Kamahl to deal 3 to Jameson. Eric draws for turn and plays Untai Dake, the Cloudkeeper. With nothing else, he passes. Jameson untaps, and uses his library to make sure he gets the best card on top that he can out of the 3. He then casts a Seasons Past, and returns Sylvan Safekeeper and Seedborn Muse, and his Arena. He then recasts the Seedborn Muse, paying 1 green to draw a card. He casts Sylvan Safekeeper, and pays 1 more again to draw. He then realizes that he hasn't used the Scry once this entire game, but I mean it's his first time playing the deck, so whatever. He then plays an Arena, and casts Nature's Claim to destroy his own Survival of the Fittest, gaining 4 life. Moving to combat, Jameson swings the Geared Up Chieftain at Jason for 18. Jason opts to just take the hit, and Jameson passes. Jameson untaps on Jason's turn, and Jason pays 4 to give Yargle unblockable with the Rogue's Passage. Jameson responds to the trigger on the stack, and casts Krosan Grip to destroy the Masterwork of Ingenuity that's a copy of Stratascythe. He then casts Beast Within on Kamahl, but Jason changes the targets by casting Imp's Mischief to make the Beast Within target Vigor. Jason loses 3 life, and Vigor dies. Vigor's also supposed to get shuffled in, but Jason decides to help Jameson out by killing him with an unblockable Yargle, so it doesn't matter either way. At the end of Jason's turn, Eric taps Kamahl to deal 3 to Jason. Eric casts a 1000-Year Elixir in his main phase, and moves to combat, swinging everything at Jason for 12. Eric then pays 1 mana to untap Kamahl, and passes turn. On Jason's upkeep, he pays 1 black mana to cast a Vampiric Tutor, taking 2 damage. He finds the card he wants, and puts it on top, drawing it. Moving to combat, Jason swings Yargle at Eric, who taps Kamahl before moving to blockers to deal 3 to Yargle. With the trigger on the stack though, Jason casts Rush of Vitality to give Yargle +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. But wait, there's more. Jason isn't done, and casts a Tainted Strike to steal the win. Game review time. So it's pretty cool that Eric's got this new system where he's able to bring all of his cards, which is a lot and probably very heavy, but he's able to build any deck he wants almost at a moment's notice. They may never be perfectly tuned, but at least he has the option and variety to do whatever he wants basically, which I think is a lot of fun. Jason's Yargle and Grunn deck are very combat-centric and smashy. Grunn in particular seems like a massive threat, especially if you have any way to give him trample or unblockable. Even without the kicker, you're still probably taking 10 commander damage, so that adds up fast. And then there's Yargle, who's just a frog spirit. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.